Good afternoon. Welcome back to the Bout Some Football Podcast. I'm yours, Kyle. Sorry, I had to take a break at work, and there wasn't in school, and there really wasn't too much going on in the NFL scene after the J.J. Watt release. Uh, so I'm gonna quick talk about that. But today, what I want to do is I want to go over my top 10 free agents in the upcoming 2021 free agency, my predictions for where they end up, and type of contract that they end up receiving. And also, I wanted to kind of make it like a top 100 where I go over 10 every episode. That's the hope. Maybe I might only get to 50. Who knows? But let's talk about the whole J.J. Watt thing. Ended up signing with the Arizona Cardinals on a 2-year, $31 million contract. Chandler Jones, J.J. Watt, that's a pretty nice combination. They're the first and second place for most sacks since 2012. A lot bigger contract than I was expecting for him to receive. And also, Arizona Cardinals wasn't one of the teams that had listed. I was expecting the contract to be somewhere in the range of 9 to 11 million a year after coming off season that he had, but cashed in. Didn't really go to a contender, I wouldn't say, but still nice to be able to make a lot of money. Russell Wilson, hopefully he's okay with this. Having Chandler Jones, J.J. Watt, Nick Bosa, was it Seattle, San Francisco, Arizona, and Aaron Donald, of course. Sorry, I forgot the best defensive player, one of the best of all time too. My bad. Uh, so going over my top free agents again, it's going to be hopefully a 10-part series with 1 through 10 today, and end up hitting 11 through 20 another day. But I'm only going to do free agents that are currently listed on March 1st, 2021. I'm not going to do that. I think there's going to be a lot of cap casualties, a lot of veterans getting cut this year due to whole COVID cutting back on the cap space. So I'm not going to include them if they haven't been cut yet. So Von Miller would be pretty high on this list. I do expect him to end up being cut, or at least signing a much smaller contract. But let's start off with number one. Very obvious. Everyone has him as number one. It's going to be Dak Prescott for the Dallas Cowboys. Last year, he ended up throwing for 1,856 passing yards, 9 touchdowns. This was only in 5 games before going down with that grueling ankle injury against the Giants in the third quarter. He was really on track to not only lead the NFL in passing yards, but also set the Cowboys' single-season record for most passing yards. He would facilitate one of the best offenses in the league while on the Cowboys with Ezekiel Elliott, CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper. He had it really moving with them. I mean, their defense was incredibly subpar. Was the reason I was holding them back why they had a 1-4 start. But it all really went stale when Andy Dalton came in at quarterback, kind of threw the whole season away. Mike McCarthy didn't help either. So contract talks have been pretty confusing for J.J. Watt. I mean, not for J.J. Watt, for Dak Prescott. He ended up playing under the franchise tag last year. I think he made $36 million was the franchise tag. And he's still looking for a $45 million a year contract even after the injury. I think it might affect how the contract comes along with Jerry Jones with the ankle injury and how he's recovering. But I still think Jerry Jones will end up forking out about a 4-year, $178 million contract to Dak, who is a 27-year-old two-time Pro Bowler. And he's just looking to return from injury with this brand new contract and really get back to work with the Cowboys. Now, the Cowboys do have the third most cap this year with $23 million, with the new league cap coming in at a minimum $181 million. That was announced a few weeks ago, with the final announcement on what the max is, so the official cap space area coming in on the new NFL year being March 10th. So $23 million may not seem like a lot, but this year it is going to be a good bit. Actually, I don't even think that's right. $23 million is not. Let me check. For right now, Cowboys have... The Cowboys have the 14th most with $23 million. My fault. So that is not updated from when there was some cuts and some players released and some contracts reconstructed because a few teams had jumped them. So I think this contract will end up being back heavy when possibly fans start returning to the stadiums and more money is being made and the cap goes back up, with a lot of it being guaranteed upwards of $120 million. Now, my second-ranked free agent is going to be Allen Robinson from the Chicago Bears. Robinson said in interviews that he would love to return to the Chicago Bears if the money is right, but leaving isn't out of the picture. Now, last season, Robinson would put up 1,250 reception yards, 6 touchdowns, and 0 drops, but he wouldn't even make the Pro Bowl. This is his third season where he tallied more than 1,100 receiving yards, and his second in a row, actually, with last year he ended up putting up 1,170. Now, Robinson is also 27 years old, same as Dak, but he's played in the league 2 more years than he has. And he's one of the most underrated possession receivers currently in NFL. And he did all of this, all these great years, 10 plus touchdowns in like 4 years, and again 1,100 plus yards in 3 years with quarterbacks of Blake Bortles, Mitch Trubisky, and Nick Foles. Now he has some of the best hands in the league, and he has shown that with these some pretty inaccurate quarterbacks throwing towards him, he's still able to catch it. My personal belief is I think Chicago, the Bears, will end up franchise tagging Robinson, and they're going to have a lot of work to do in order to afford him because they're currently sitting a little bit over $3 million over cap space. They were actually at about 800 that, or not over, under cap. They were actually sitting at about $800,000 under cap until they released Buster Skrine a few days ago, clearing $2.5 million. If he does hit the open market, I think Robinson's contract range will end up being $18 to $20 million, something like Michael Thomas received a few years ago. And I could see Robinson end up getting a 3-year, $62 million contract with either the Indianapolis Colts or the New England Patriots. Both have cap space, both could use wide receivers, and especially Indianapolis could use him if T.Y. Hilton decides to leave. And Carson Wentz coming in, I think Allen Robinson's really going to like that. Third ranked free agent is going to be wide receiver Chris Godwin. He just turned 25 on February 27th and has been a playmaker all 4 years he's been in the NFL, primarily with Jameis Winston, but also with Tom Brady last year. This year, he only played 12 games due to injury, but would still tally up at 840 receiving yards and 7 touchdowns with this incredibly talented Buccaneers wide receiver crew with like Mike Evans and Antonio Brown, and even Scotty Miller came out of nowhere. I expect Goodwin to end up in the same market as Allen Robinson. Obviously, Robinson is a much better player, but Goodwin is proven and younger, and he'll be he'll end up still picking up a contract in between the range of $15 to $17 million. I expect the same teams that are targeting Robinson to also go after Chris, and you can add Jets to that too because they just love overpaying players. So I say he ends up getting a 5-year, $80 million with $43 million guaranteed, whether that's the Colts, Patriots, or Jets, or even some other teams are out there. Number 4, Shaq Barrett. That's my fourth free agent. Many people don't know, but Shaq Barrett ended up spending the first 5 years of his career on the Denver Broncos before signing with the Buccaneers in 2019. It was then in 2019 that he would have more than double his career sack record at the time with 19.5 in 2019. It would also put up 8 in 2020. Shaquille Barrett is 28 years old, and I'm fully expecting someone to pay Barrett out of the wazoo because edge rushers are just such an important position in the NFL right now. I'm not joking when I say they're going to overpay him, like somewhere in the range of like $22 to $25 million a year, like Von Miller money. His current prediction is somewhere in the 18 to 20 million range, but someone's going to fork out this like huge $23.5-24 million contract for him, like the Jets. I'm sorry, I make fun of the Jets a lot. They like to overpay players and they offer everyone crazy contracts. I think the reason that I feel like the Jets offer everybody like these insane contracts. It's just nobody wants to play for the Jets, so they only sign a few like CJ Mosley or Le'Veon Bell. Like they got these huge contracts. I'm sure everybody in free agency got them from the Jets. Nobody just wanted to pick up the phone. There aren't many teams that can afford the contract like Barrett's looking to get, but I'd say that if he does end up signing, he's going to go to the Bengals. Don't be surprised if he does sign with a smaller contract to return to the Buccaneers for a second Super Bowl. Number 5, I have Lavonte David. I now see I've had 3 Buccaneers in a row with number 3, Goodwin, number 4, Shaq Barrett, now 5, Lavonte David. It makes it obvious why they won the Super Bowl. Yes, Lavonte David is a 31-year-old outside linebacker who's coming out near the end of his prime, but I still think you can get 2 to 4 quality years out of David, still being one of the best linebackers in the NFL. Last year, David played all 16 games. He put up 117 total tackles, 12 tackles for loss, and 1.5 sacks. He's not an edge rusher. He's a classic outside linebacker. He's going to play coverage. He's going to play set the edge. He's going to play man-to-man on tight ends like he did against Travis Kelce in the Super Bowl. And as I said, he's going to set the edge very well. He's going to seal it, make sure the running back can't get out. Now, if David wants big boy money, he look for 16 to $18 million a year to cash in on his last few prime years. I'd say his contract will only be a year or two. And if he doesn't mind a pay cut, then I say he ends up returning to the Buccaneers on a 3-year, $33 million contract, a little under his predicted average of the salary of $12.7 million right now. But, I mean, look, if he wants to win another Super Bowl, the Buccaneers are the team he's got to go to. They just won. Keeping all these pieces is important. Plus, he's played there his whole Sorry. He's played there his whole career, so it'd be nice to finish out with one team. So this is where number 6 is going to be where my list differs from a lot of other people's. I'm very high on offensive linemen, and I think having an above-average offensive line is the only way that you're going to not only make like run in the playoffs, but also make Super Bowl. So that's why at 6 I have Brandon Scherff from the Washington football team. He's 29 years old. He is the best free agent offensive lineman that I have ranked, and I also think he's going to get paid like that. He's coming off his 4th Pro Bowl and his first team All-Pro nod, or his first team All-Pro nod, and it's at the perfect time because he's hitting the open market. When I look at contracts to be compared to Brandon, I don't know if it's Scherff. I think it's Scherff or Sharif. I'm pretty sure it's Scherff. I look at Zach Martin's contract, who he received a 6-year, $84 million contract a few years ago. I think that they are similar, very skill set wise, both being guards, both being very good at pass blocking and in run blocking. But when Martin signed it, he was 27, so I expect Scherff's contract to be a little shorter because if he did end up signing a 6-year deal right now, he would finish at 35, which is pretty old for a offensive lineman. I still believe he'll land in the range of $13 to $15 million, same area that Zach Martin was, and I could definitely see the Ravens giving him a contract like that because of the problems that they had at offensive line. But that's more just me being a Ravens fan and being optimistic. I think he'll end up landing with Seattle Seahawks. Russell Wilson is not happy with how the Seahawks have handled the offensive line over the past few years and how often he's getting hit. That's why there's these whole trade rumors and stuff. I think this could really cool it down. Chill Russell Wilson out. Tell him, hey, everything's okay. We're bringing some offensive linemen in. Give Brandon a 4-year, $50 million contract. Number 7 free agent. I'm going with this defensive end turned defensive tackle in this Giants 3-4 defensive scheme, that being Leonard Williams. It's kind of a weird story. 2015 draft, he was drafted 6th overall by the Jets, and he came out for a few years and just looked like a bust, underperformed, especially for the 6th overall pick. So the Jets would ship him over to the other New York football team, that being the Giants, for I think it was a 3rd round and a compensatory 6th round pick. And it was with the Giants that after he finished out the season that he was traded, where he didn't do anything. He would put up 11.5 sacks in 2020, along with 14 tackles for a loss, both career highs. Maybe it's just the Jets scheme. It was probably just the Jets scheme on why he sucked. So at 26 years old, he's coming off his best season in this new 3-4 scheme. And Williams is going to look to cash in on a big contract. So say he does underperform next season, he's still going to make millions. Now, last year, April 23rd, Williams did sign a 1-year, $16.1 million contract at the time, or with the Giants, and at the time it seemed crazy because how poorly he had performed over the past few years, but he did pretty well for it in 2020, so I think that he will be attempting to achieve somewhere around the same amount. I think his best offer is going to come from either the Jaguars or to re-sign with the Giants. I think with the Jaguars, he's going to get like a 3-year, $44 million contract, kind of team him up with Josh Allen on that defensive line, build young, especially with that new quarterback coming and a new head coach. Or he'll go back to the Giants on a similar contract, somewhere a little bit less, near 3-year, $38 million. Number 8 free agent. Again, this is where it's going to differ. I have an offensive lineman here again that I'm really high on, and that's going to be Corey Linsley of the Packers. Now, Corey is a 29-year-old center who's been snapping the ball to Aaron Rodgers for 6 years now, since 2014, and over his entire career, he's only ever fumbled the snap twice. Well, it could have been him, could have been Aaron Rodgers. I'd have to look into both fumbles, see what happened, but only ever fumbled twice. The center market this offseason is filled with either veterans looking for 1 to 2 year contracts, such as Tony Bergstrom, Alex Mack, and Daniel Kilgore, but there are also some younger free agents, 27, 28 years old, looking for longer contracts like Corey Linsley, David Andrews, Nick Martin, and Ted Karras. I expect Linsley and Andrews to receive the largest contracts, and I expect both to be targeted greatly by this team, that being the Baltimore Ravens. And that is where I am predicting Linsley to end up. He ends up on the Baltimore Ravens with a 4-year, $48 million contract. It's a little more than the market that is set for Linsley to pull, which is about $9.7 million on average right now via Spotrac. But the Ravens are desperate. Center position, they've been dealing with problems for a few years now. And especially last year due to Matt Skura and Patrick McCarry's shortcomings and struggles with snapping left, snapping to the right, snapping over Lamar, snapping on the ground. It's just everything. It's been horrific. They just want to find some stability at that position. Number 9 free agent, I'm going to go with the 3rd wide receiver I have ranked, which is going to be Kenny Golladay with the Detroit Lions. As I said, he's a 3rd ranked wide receiver on my top 10, and the Lions are really in a tough position because both Kenny Golladay, their wide receiver 1, and Marvin Jones, the wide receiver 2, are both free agents. And they need at least one of them to come back. And I expect that Marvin Jones is going to leave So Galladay is a 27-year-old coming off a season where he only played in 5 games due to injuries, but if you look at the year before, he put up 1,190 yards and 11 touchdowns. Again, for those reasons why he performed so well, I think that I can almost guarantee that the Lions will be placing the franchise tag on one of the more underrated wide receivers in the league. The wide receiver franchise tag is going to end up landing between $15.76 million and $16.2 million or $16.02 million, depending on where the final cap space ends come March 10th when they announce it. Galladay's current market value sits at about $17 million, again, according to Spotrac. That's the same category as players like Odell Beckham and Brandon Cooks. He's very underrated. So, I mean, Odell Beckham-wise, again, you haven't seen him play really in 2 years now. But it'd be interesting to see what kind of contract he'd be able to pull if hit the open market, but I don't think he will. Number 10, for my 10th and final free agent spot on this list for the top 10 episode is going to be the first running back on this list, and that's Aaron Jones. Running backs' value have fallen quickly recently, and it's honestly become seemingly easy to find quality running backs either for cheap or for in the later rounds of the NFL draft. You only have to spend a top 2 round or a day 1 or day 2 pick on a running back. Still, you'll have a quality player. Well, Jones has already established himself as one of the better running backs in the game, and at 26 years old, he's coming off his first Pro Bowl season with 1,104 rushing yards and 9 rushing touchdowns, all while the Packers ran their offense through the eventual MVP, Aaron Rodgers, and very pass-attack offense. Now, this might sound crazy, but I'm going to tell you right now this is going to happen. Aaron Jones will bring in a contract worth more than Derrick Henry's current 4-year, $50 million contract. The primary reason for this is because his ability to catch passes out of the backfield is near the top of the league when looking at running backs. Example would be like Alvin Kamara, who is the best receiving back. Signed a 5-year, $75 million contract 2 years ago. And the current market for Jones is predicted to be $14.6 million, but I think he will end up pushing that up to $15 million a year from the Miami Dolphins. That contract will be 4 years and $60 million. Well, there's my top 10. Thank you for watching, and have a good one.